Quality risk assessment: how to assess risk with limited batch data. Development activities provide the initial data upon which the risk assessments and control strategies are based. In most cases, a limited amount of data is available upon which to base conclusions. The risk assessments and knowledge management processes should take into account the quality of the knowledge that support the final risk determination. This article is the first in a series to discuss assessing risk when a limited number of batches are available. The first stage of validation is gaining product and process understanding. Validation should be risk-based and control critical variability. See my video, FDA Validation Guidance and ICH, What You Should Know. With respect to process risk estimation, severity is related to the strength of influence between the process parameter X and the CQA Y. The other factor in risk estimation is the probability of failure. The problem with the risk assessments is they can often not be data-based. Many times, the final determination often represents the view of the person with the strongest opinion in the room. In the commercial world, a significant number of production runs may be made to allow variation to express itself. In such situations, a good estimate of probability or process capability can be made. However, that is not the case in development. The development world has a limited number of batches available upon which to base conclusions. How does one go about estimating the risk without simply relying on gut feeling? It is not that subject matter experts don't have pertinent knowledge, but oftentimes they do not think about how they know what they know. When there are several opinions, how does one determine which one is the best? It is not about consensus, but rather the data and how it is assessed. Assessing risk comes down to assessing the knowledge that supports the final conclusion. The title of the person does not make a difference. It is the data and how it supports the conclusions that matter. To understand how to drill down on knowledge, watch my video, Knowledge Assessment, 3 Essential Questions to Expertly Measure Knowledge. Today, knowledge is not created equal. It really depends on how you know what you know. Descriptive knowledge does not have detailed understanding. It simply describes the process like a recipe. In the pharmaceutical world, it is the batch record. Correlative knowledge comes from years of experience or expert opinion. Someone has run the process for 20 years and knows what good looks like. The operator knows which parameters lead to a good outcome and dial them in. The next knowledge level is causal knowledge and is the first level where conclusions are based on objective data. Design of experiments, DOE, reveal which parameters influence the desired outcomes. The strength of the relationships is known. I break the relationships into 4 categories: no relationship, strong, medium, and low. If there is no relationship between the input X and the output Y, the analysis stops. Strong relationships are when small changes with input X results in large changes in output Y. Weak interactions are when large changes in input X cause slight changes in output Y. Medium is in between the other two. Mechanistic knowledge is understanding how and why X influences Y. The mechanism itself may be controlled or manipulated. First principle knowledge results when the XY relationship can be described in an equation and Y can be predicted. For the purpose of this article, the key takeaway is knowing and documenting how you know what you know. When documenting risk decisions, there is a big difference between when the risk assignment is based on correlative knowledge of the subject matter expert, SME, and mechanistic knowledge. I have seen well-intentioned professionals investigate deviations, refer to the documented risk assessments, and consider them sacred. More times than I can count, The conclusions were based on the strongest opinion in the room at the time. Little or no objective data supported the conclusion. Now when I conduct risk assessments, I ask how the SME knows and to provide a reference to the data that supports their conclusion. I created a risk table that takes the level of knowledge into account. I call the risk parameter uncertainty. It measures the strength of knowledge being brought to bear. The highest risk is when there is no knowledge of the XY relationship. Conclusions based on this knowledge are highly speculative and carry risk. The top of the scale is mechanistic understanding. In this case, detailed understanding of the relationship provides great certainty in the conclusion. First principle knowledge is an advanced stage. Mechanistic and first principle knowledge carry with them a low level of uncertainty. As such, great confidence can be placed in the conclusions. The vast majority of instances are when knowledge is either correlative or causal. It is important to distinguish between the two. As I said earlier, correlative knowledge is based on the SME's past experience. My favorite example is determining wet granulation endpoints. The right endpoint is determined when Bob, the experienced operator, takes a sample of granulated material and squeezes it. If it looks consistent with Bob's previous experience of what is good, he moves forward. I've had similar experiences when Jane knows the cooling rates in the final crystallization to produce the right particle size because she has done it for 5 years and knows what works. I do not discount that knowledge. It is important. Documenting it brings it from tribal knowledge to institutional knowledge. It reduces the risk to the company losing that experience when Bob or Jane win the lottery and leave. Most times correlative knowledge shows up in the assessments when doing risk assessments on legacy processes before DOEs were conducted. The other time is early in the development process in Phase 2 or early Phase 3, when the prior knowledge is documented and formulation of Phase 3 development plans are beginning. Causal knowledge is easy to determine. Ask the SME for the reference to the study that supports the XY relationship. There should be a DOE or other suitable study that documents the relationship. In certain circumstances, it may be appropriate to leverage knowledge from a similar process. At the very least, the similar process may be considered correlative until it can be confirmed by data from the process in question. Causal knowledge is sufficient in the vast majority of instances. Most of the time, the influence of the parameter does not significantly impact the final CQA. It could be because of a weak correlation, a robust process, or because of a downstream control. In these instances, it is not worth the time, money, or effort to do further study. These instances are a great opportunity to document the knowledge, assess the risk, and move on to other factors that are more important. For me, the great benefit of risk management is not doing less, but rather focusing resources on the variability that matters most. There is not enough time or money to fully investigate every parameter, and moreover, these studies would be a waste of resources. This approach is a great benefit to development. It allows them to document their scientific knowledge and move on to characterizing the most important variability. It is not necessary to conduct a large number of batches to characterize and understand the vast majority of parameters. It is more beneficial to sort out the trivial many early and focus on the important few. The next cut occurs when the important few are further reduced by subsequent development activities, resulting in the critical handful that need to be monitored post-approval to allow time for significant variability to manifest itself. However, that is the topic of future articles. Be sure to subscribe to our channel